Microphones for their questions, that would be appreciated. Somebody's got to be bold here. Sir.
Gentlemen, good morning. My name is Brian Byrne. I'm from U.S. Northern Command. I'd like to tie together a theme from the quadrennial roles and missions review that's currently ongoing and the future of the QDR. Specifically, I would like each one of you to comment on what you think the strongest core competency you have within each of your services, and what's the one core competency that you would shore up to meet both the national defense strategy and national security goals of defending the homeland.
Okay. Since there was a pause at this end as well as that end. In terms of the core competencies of the services, just a thought on that to begin with. You know, each of the services has what we consider to be our core competencies. I would suggest that there is more to that than what the services think are their core competencies. I mean, after all, the services exist to do the bidding of the nation's defense. And so if maybe the question is not so much what core competency we have is that supports homeland defense. It's what is the role, if you will, of each of the services or of the Department of Defense more broadly in homeland defense. As was mentioned earlier this morning, there are some legal things that keep us from doing some things inside of the United States with regard to homeland defense. I think we all realize that if there is an event of some catastrophic event in this country, that the people in America are going to feel more secure if they see uniformed military people tending to that event. I mean, that phenomenon has occurred. It occurred in Katrina, and it's occurred in other things that we've done. Very shortly after that, it seems to be that the civil authorities will rise to the top, as we saw in 9/11, but the initial response, if you will, may be military, or it may be civilian, and the military may do some other role. But I think that, quite frankly, rather than saying that it's a core competency of the Marine Corps, I mean, all of our core competencies could in some way, maybe with the exception of doing forcible entry, of course you could argue that in Brooklyn, but that all of those core competencies would in some way contribute to the national defense. I think, quite frankly, to go back to Northern Command, it might be useful for Northern Command to lay out how they think the services could be of most use to them in terms of homeland defense, in terms of either long-term homeland defense or in terms of a homeland defense event. You know, as you know, we have, CBRF, the Marine Corps' Chemical Biological Warfare organization, is now part of and very much attached to, always has been involved in homeland defense. How much more we do as services on the active side or on the reserve side is still, I think, fertile ground for us to plow during this next QDR. We started talking about a lot of that in the last QDR. But I don't think that conversation has quite been taken to its fullest extent. So that was what you just saw over the last couple of minutes here. Was classic Washington speak, which is you asked me a hard question and I threw it back and made it your fault. So thank you for asking the question.
Thank you for asking the question. I'll say it up front. I think the area where we have the biggest challenge today is global maritime awareness, because it's there's just so many things out there to find, and you have to figure out, do you want to find it to support a fight? Do you want to find it to support the counter-drug operations? Do you want to find it for finding bad guys moving from place to place? It depends on the context of what you want to do, how hard it is to find what you're looking for. And so, and you know, as I mentioned earlier, the oceans do make up 70% of the Earth, and there are hundreds of thousands of ships out there every day. I mean, for instance, the Strait of Malacca, there are about 200 large tankers that go through there every day, and there are thousands of ships that go through there every day. And so finding that needle in the haystack when you're not quite sure what the needle even looks like becomes a challenge. So the way we're going after that is to first define what the problem is we're trying to solve, and there are a couple of them. And then we know we need help from the international community as well as our friends. So in the international community, what we have is this thing called automatic identification system. So any ship over 300 tons carries this beacon that identifies who it is and where it's what direction it's going. As you might imagine, the people that we're looking for don't always use their beacon, so they don't broadcast where they are, so and who they are. So we have that challenge. So it gets to, and then there are places where we don't have as good access as we want, so we count on our partners to help us with that. But there's all sorts of pieces to that as well, and it gets into classification issues and intergovernment within certain governments. How do you pass information from DOD to FBI, and all those exist in other countries as well. So we've got that problem. So I'd say that's our biggest challenge.
Let me offer a couple thoughts. I think part of your question was, what do we do good in that area? What do we do well? I think from an airport's perspective, the one thing that this country does much better than anybody else, because we have the capability and the capacity to do it, and that's move things, whether it be by